I'd like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of May 17th of the Town Trustees. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and
to the republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
for all. Okay, so will Secretary Treasurer Horowitz please call the roll?
President Eric Schultz.
Present.
Secretary Treasurer Horowitz, I am obviously here. Trustee Edward J. Warner Jr.,
Present.
Trustee William Pell IV. William Pell IV, trustee.
Bill, are you muted?
I'm muted. Sorry, I'm here.
Okay.
There. Trustee Ann Welker.
Right in the basement.
Welcome, Mr. President. We have a
Okay.
quorum.
Great. Okay, so next trustee meeting work session is June 7th, 2021 at 9:30. The next regular meeting is June 7th, 2021 at 1 p.m.
Those meetings are in person, right? Sorry,
At
not
the
meaning to interrupt,
hall.
but to
at the-
clarify.
So,
Who's bringing cake?
So
Yeah.
we need to figure out participants, whether they're going to be in town hall or on Zoom.
well, I guess we're gonna have to play it by ear unless the governor changes his mind. I thought that everyone, that the Zoom was not in effect after June 1st. So if it's extended, then we'll just do Zoom then again.
No, what I'm saying is that the board members can be in town hall, but we have a situation with like zoning and planning where there's 40 or 50 people on a Zoom. They can't be in town hall.
Right.
So we're gonna
Okay, well, we'll have to clear that with the deputy supervisor and come up with some protocol.
Let's speak to Deputy Supervisor Zappone and,
Yeah, I just wanted to put that out there.
no, that's good that you do, Charles.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll get on that today and figure out so we know what's going on, so we're not caught off guard.
Thank you.
Okay, so first item on the agenda is the public hearing for 65 Cliff Drive LLC in Noyak. It was adjourned on 4/19/2021, so I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Scott seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, is the applicant here?
Who is the applicant?
Brian Lester.
Brian Lester or,
Adeline Benjon.
Got him.
okay,
Got her. Yeah.
okay. Okay, you bringing Mr. Lester on or whoever's representing the project?
She's on already.
Hi,
Madeline.
Madeline Benjon here for the applicant.
Okay. All right, so James, can you bring up the plan that was submitted by 65 Cliff? So we can look at
You want the new stuff?
the newest, the latest one.
Okay. Yeah, just give me a minute.
Okay.
You can't see that, can you? The application.
No.
Not yet.
Okay. I'll bring up the application first.
Okay.
You can see that now, right?
Right,
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
okay. Yeah. Describe the project.
What's that, Eric?
I said the applicant want to describe the project.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think my screen glitched a little bit. I didn't hear you.
Okay.
So so basically we submitted an amended application based on our site visits and our work with the marine contractor. And we also reviewed the documents submitted by the agent for the neighbors and got our marine contractor's opinion on all of that. And essentially, because of the current elevations and mean high water at the site, it was determined that a low sill bulkhead that began a foot below mean high water would not be effective at containing this sand that the neighbors are concerned about leaving the property. It might be effective in some other situations around town, but it isn't going to work on this site in order to accomplish what everyone wants here with getting this sand out of the way. So with our amended plans, we submitted a letter from Costello Marine Contracting, kind of going into some details on that, as well as some other aerials showing the different situation there, and a photograph of the adjacent bulkhead, which we believe we need to be relatively connected to in order to maintain any kind of sand, based on how high the sand already is behind that area and the fact that we're proposing reclamation dredging in order to get the sand out of the canal and back behind the property. It needs to be able to stay there. Otherwise it won't matter if we put it back and it goes right back in. So that's the concern we have for the updated documents.
Okay. Well, let's take a look at the side view, side profile. James, if you have that.
Let's see.
Okay. So this new plan allows for more sand to be placed behind the bulkhead when constructed.
Exactly. This would allow all of the sand that basically fell off the property to be replaced.
Mm-hmm. Now, which bulkhead are you talking about with the elevation? The one to the east?
There's only one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's to the east. To the west, his bulkhead is much further back and not connected. So the property to the east.
Okay, and I believe that we issued a permit a couple of years ago to one of the people along that canal. It's basically the same, looks like about the same height as this one. I reviewed some of the documents, but I'm sure that they'll weigh in on that. So you're saying 45 yards of material for reclamation and then be planted with Spartina alterniflora. I don't know that alterniflora is going to work in that situation. You might want to change that to patents.
Yeah.
Because
Okay, we're open to any plants there.
well, the alterniflora has to be flooded twice a day, so that's not going to work. So you're going to have to put patents back there that's more tolerant, which
Okay.
is in the area also.
Okay.
Okay. So does anyone from the public want to comment?
If so, please raise your hand and I'll let you in.
Mm-hmm.
We have a few.
Okay.
I'll just note before we start taking the comments from the public, I'm going to time the 3 minutes. We do that so the board can stay on track with the meeting agenda. Please don't take offense to it.
Well, usually what we do is we allow 3 minutes and then and first round, so everybody gets a shot. And then if anybody has any additional comments, they can, come in. So.
Would you like me to start the time, do the timing? Okay.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Who do we have first?
Sean, are you keeping the time? Who's keeping the time?
I'm keeping the time.
Lisa, yeah, you can do it. That's great. Thank you.
Do you want to do it, Sean? It's up to you.
No, perfect.
Okay.
Tiffany's up.
Eric, would you like me to stay on this or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Just in case we need to, move some things around.
Tiffany.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you see me?
Yep.
Yes.
It's another
No.
live broadcast, live from 65.
Can you
Okay.
turn your phone sideways?
Sure can.
There you go.
Okay. But
Okay, so I would like to start out by saying 45 cubic yards is a third of what needs to be removed. We are now at high tide, and there's my paddleboard. This paddleboard is sitting in the area where we navigated small motorboats in and out of.
Excuse me. Can you share our screen so we can see it again, please?
One second. Let me see if I can just pin her video.
And Tiffany, could you start all over again, please?
Sure. So
Sorry
I'm
about
at
that.
high. Yeah, no worries at all. Now I could see myself. It's easier for me to communicate it better to you guys. I hope everybody is well, by the way. So I'm at high tide, 65 Cliff Drive. 45 cubic yards is, as of November, it was proved by First Coastal 160 cubic yards had fallen from that property. We've done hydro surveys, topographic charts. Taking a tape measure to the sand is not an accurate description to give a quantity of material. So last time we were at kind of low tide, now we're at high tide. And this is where we navigated our motorboats in and out of this canal during high tide. This is the landslide. This is the area. 160 cubic yards in November was measured. It's continuing to erode, as we have demonstrated at the last live meeting. It's going further into Paynes Creek. And the shoal is completely compromised. Having something in a body of water does not only affect the land that it fell from. You have a big mass of material that has been sitting in this water, compromising the shoal, the neighboring properties on both sides, and the end of the canal. 45 cubic yards is actually insulting. What type of testing was done to prove 45 cubic yards? Does anybody know? Ms. Benjon, do you know the answer to that?
No, let's not have any direct conversations with the applicant. We'll
Okay.
just pose the questions and I'll mediate it.
Okay.
But what I'd like to do though, is that we're going to do our own calculations as far as how much sand has to be reclaimed. We're going to take into account Mr. Tertunian's, and we're going to take in their accounts and yours. Everybody's going to be, it's all going to be factored in.
Right.
But what we should focus on right now is the plan as it is right now acceptable to everyone down there? The comments on the actual plan that is submitted as far as the location of the bulkhead, regardless of what height it is, the location and the returns. That's one thing I'd like to clarify first.
I think it would be best if Aram Tertunian reviews that and answers that question. I would be remiss to say I profess to know exactly the location, but it does seem to be, if you go in line with the other bulkheads and then tie it into where it once was, by the rocks, that's where it was. So if you're going back in like condition of placement, that's where it was.
Okay.
So Aram would really be the one to speak on everything else. And I actually am glad to hear that they are proposing a higher bulkhead, because the initial survey, it was holding back 3 feet of land on the water side, 2 feet 2 on one corner and 2 feet 5 on landward side on the other corner. So the lower sill bulkhead would not have contained what has fallen. And I think you may have been referring to the last bulkhead that was done was mine. And it was like in height and in placement. And if I have a higher elevation property, and a low sill bulkhead was not appropriate for this area as well.
Right.
You don't necessarily.
I've been rethinking that too.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Sorry.
Who had a question?
I just wanted to say that you don't necessarily have to retain all of the material on the property. You could perhaps amend permits to truck material to an approved DEC alternative site for spoils. So if the number, if the number gets to be a number beyond that, the material can leave, right? Doesn't have to all stay on site.
Okay,
Tiff,
so-
can you show my bulkhead, how it's gone down?
Show 61
Wait,
Cliff Drive bulkhead.
Wait, let's get control of this. We're having a public hearing now. Okay, so
With
Tiffany,
all due respect, the
What?
yardage comes as a complete surprise. It's off by about 70%.
You can't just talk. You have to be asked to talk, and you have to give your name and your address.
that's
Please
correct.
don't butt in, okay?
Because if this is going to turn into some litigious situation further on down the line, we have to do everything by the book. Okay.
Understood.
I'm not gonna have, so Tiffany's talking right now. Okay. So are you done right now? I'm not trying to push this through, but are you done right now?
I'll wait my turn, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't know
I
the
wanna move
answer to
on.
Scott's. I don't know, Scott, Mr. Horowitz, were you posing that question to me? I honestly
No,
can't
No, I was
answer it.
just to my fellow board members.
Oh, I see.
No, this is board discussion,
Tiffany?
not for back and forth.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you point to like, how deep is it going across? I don't know if you could walk across or just point where the mouth is.
Okay,
Or the
so
counter
I'm,
that- So people can
Mhm.
see.
yeah, so I'm standing at the mouth of the canal and this is high tide. Again, can you see?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where we navigated our boats. It's not very deep. And now I'm on the shoal and the shoal has completely increased in height, in width, and in length. What has happened because of the clog, the material moves in, traps onto the shoal.
Can you go, excuse me, Tiffany, can you go back and show the little lift with the edge where the bank has coming up? You just showed it in the pictures, like 6 or 8 inches.
Okay, so if I'm,
Good, so people can see it.
okay. Yeah, so is that angle good? Okay, so now I'm on the
No.
shoal.
No, go back farther. Go back towards this, I would say to the east, to the west.
Okay. Okay, so now I'm heading west into Paynes Creek. This is the shoal and the landslide. This was all deep water navigable by motorboat. And I'm at high tide right now. And that's 65 Cliff. You could still see this scarping is continuing from 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Mr. Pell, is that the angle that you wanted?
Yes, I wanted, so people can see it. So because we understand it, but the people who are watching might not understand it.
Yeah, it is actually difficult to comprehend, especially in photos. So I'm hoping I'm not overstepping my position to present this way, but I do believe that seeing it like this gives a different perspective. And this guy at 69 is about to hopefully bring in his 2 boats, and he's probably not going to be able to get at least one of them on the Paynes Creek side, on the canal side, because the water, the land is so high.
Well, let's let some of the other people in the area talk for, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Stick around. Who's
Okay.
next?
The Brodies are next.
Okay, you have to state your name.
Tiffany showed for a while the shot of it along our bulkhead.
You have
which
to
is-
state your name and address, please.
Oh, Van Brody, 61 Cliff Drive.
Okay, great.
Okay, now the shot that Tiffany has now, the sand has cascaded and has covered more than half the width of our property. I don't see how 45 yards is reasonable. I never had sand in front of my bulkhead until they took their bulkhead down. Their shot of the proposed bulkhead is the continuation of my bulkhead. So my question is, in their 45 yards, unless it's a different numerical system, is that going to clear the sand away from my property? I use that because that is my way of getting in and out of the water, and the sand there doesn't make it easier. Next question I have, which is kind of a rule of thumb thing, when if people have a beach that goes directly into the water, no bulkhead and so on and so forth, people are allowed to store their boats and do what they want as long as it's legal, I guess, below the high tide line. Is that so?
Beyond the high tide mark?
No, but
Below.
from the high tide line down to the water line, people can hang out and have a beach, keep their kayaks there and stuff like that, as
Yeah.
long as it's below the high tide, right?
Right, it's public trust doctrine.
Okay. I'm not sure But I'm gonna start a yacht club, and if we don't get this thing through, I think I'll have boats stored there.
Well, stored there?
Yeah, sure, because it'll be below high tide. Why not?
Well, you can dock 2 boats onto your bulkhead right now, except
That's
that.
right. Well, it's not mine. I can't, but I could put it on their sand, and it'll help me get out to the beach and go kayaking.
Your bulkhead functional? I thought it was all alterna flora behind there.
No, I'm saying before the cascade of sand, I could go off my bulkhead and paddle out to the bay and such. Now I can't. I have to drag it across all that sand. I'm disabled. I'll need a rec V or something like that to get my boat out there. Or if necessary, maybe I could put my boats or my kayaks below the high tide line, and then it won't be a problem.
Well,
you
no,
think they'll like that?
That's a little different.
Okay. Well, James, can you bring up the plan again? I'd like to have comments on the plan as far as the placement of the bulkhead and see if everybody's on board with that, regardless of the height and regardless of how much material is going to be involved in the reclamation of it. We are going to determine that. Okay. But I'd like to straighten out once and for all, is everybody satisfied with the placement of the bulkhead in its position right now with the 2 returns? Mr. Brody, have you got a chance to look?
It looks all right. I'd have to compare it, but basically what you're telling me is they're going to marry their bulkhead to the end of our bulkhead, which was how it was before they removed it.
Yes.
So with the exception of the return on the north side, it's basically the same thing.
Okay. Are you fine with that?
Yeah. If it does the other stuff, yeah.
All right. And we will do the calculations as far as the yardage required and the amount we feel has gone into the canal, and adjust the height of the bulkhead when we issue a permit. This is the starting point right now as far as what they've proposed, and it's a process. Okay.
One more question. Am I to assume that in the yardage that they're talking about, they mean that there will be no sand along their bulkhead or mine, because it's a continuation?
No sand along on the
the
seaward side?
Excuse me?
On the seaward side?
Yes.
Yeah, they're going to use that sand that come and reclaim and throw it back over and backfill the bulkhead that they are going to.
And it's just a question of the math, but we're kind of agreeing on the performance.
Yes, it's going to be reclaimed from the material that entered the canal is going to be used to backfill. No new material is going to be brought in.
Okay, I want to apologize for jumping in initially.
All right, no problem. So, I know more the high down there.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, hi, it's George Colatides at 69 Cliff. Thank you all, trustees, and thanks, Tiffany, for the great visuals. This has been rather contentious. I do actually think the applicant deserves credit for identifying the fact that a low silt bulkhead would be insufficient, and it would have been. So in a contentious conversation, I do think they deserve credit for that. It appears to me, and I think President Schultz, I understand what you're trying to do, which is get sign off on the bulkhead. It certainly appears to me to be appropriate. I think if it effectively is replacing what's there, and if it's high enough to retain the removed material, it should suffice. So not having an extra expert opinion. And obviously there's lots of experts involved that can confirm that, but the picture looks appropriate to me. The height sounds like an improvement, frankly, to what we were asking. So I compliment them on that. And I think we've beat up the subject about, how much has fallen in. But I just might, suggest to people, if you think about, your typical tractor with a front payloader, those are usually a yard or two of material. So if you can picture one of those tractors and how little dirt it actually moves and how much dirt is in there. I think it'll be interesting to see when you compare all the plans. And I recognize you're trying to get the bulkhead signed off, so thank you. I recognize you'll look at all the information and come up with the appropriate amount of material to be removed. And so we'll defer to the trustees on that. But what I would say is that this was navigable before. And if we can return it to navigable in the future, I don't care how much material they remove, just let's get it back to usable. That doesn't seem like 45 to me, but you guys will do your analysis. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate all the work Tiffany's done. And I appreciate that the applicant came back with a higher bulkhead.
Okay. And let me just add that the height of the bulkhead that they proposed might not be the height that ends up that's approved. It might be 6 inches higher or see, this is just, it's a starting point.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I would just say my opinion there is the same as about how much material they do or don't take out. If it's high enough to hold the material and it's deep enough to get your boat through, perfect.
Right.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah, but it's a little more complex than that. What was the height of the bulkhead that was demolished? You know? And what
Well, was it the same height as the Mr. Brody's bulkhead?
Yeah.
Was it all constructed at the same time?
It was higher.
It was higher.
It was over 3 feet high from the
Okay.
water.
And I'm not, what is this proposal relative to that? What this was that was taken out without our authority?
What is the new proposal you're asking?
Eric or James, what is this elevation compared to
The original bulkhead.
Yeah.
Not sure what the difference is.
Okay.
Well, you know,
let some other people speak, and I'll look at that on the plans. Let some other folks.
I think
speak.
we have a good basis point of that post that's sticking out of the ground that's been there throughout the entire set of photos for the last 20 years. And basically what you would have to do is just measure where the ground level of that was, and then just run a level line out, and you'll find out what the height of the bulkhead was. And calculate square footage, and then come up with the amount of material.
I'm interested to hear from Ms. Venjon. I see she's got her hand up.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, sorry. So I just wanted to, if the public's done speaking, I just wanted to clarify that it is our intention to remove the sand that fell in. I know there's some different calculations going on there. But it is our intention to just take everything that fell out and fill it back. We just don't want to propose more than we would be able to fit behind there, because then we would have a situation where it would be falling over the bulkhead again. So that's where that number came from. And we'd also just like to reserve our right to review and comment and have our expert look at any calculations that might come through from anybody else before we get this finalized.
Sure.
I have a question for you. You said that you're going to take out how it was before this. You took the bulkhead out, which I don't understand why you took the bulkhead out. But that's besides the point. But you're going to go back to that depth. So if we give you that sounding, that's how you're going to leave it, how it was in the beginning with?
Our intention is to return it to the way it was before. But we don't have it. We'd like to review any soundings that are provided to us, because I can't just agree to them.
Yeah, I realize. I just wanted to make sure that how you were presenting it, that's what you were going to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea.
Okay. All right. We'll go down and take a look at it. We'll see if we can get the town engineer to go down. We'll make some calculations, get back to you. We'll take into account yours and Mr. Tutrunian's, and then our own. We'll come up with some workable plan. Anybody else from the public want to say anything? Anything to add?
Yes, there's one more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go, Joe.
Okay. Yeah. Joe Velarde, 53 Cliff. First of all, I think I'm very surprised and happy to hear that we're at least discussing a proper height bulkhead. I always thought the low sill was too low, but was being presented just as an ease to get approved because it was better than nothing. But that's not what was there. A full-size bulkhead was there. I could attest to the height in some ways, like I spoke last week in my little story that I read. But I could tell you that at low tide, kayaking past that bulkhead, it was above my head. That bulkhead, it was it was in the ground, and the ground beyond it, the grass and not grass, it was sand. The sand beyond it was dry, even at very high tides. And I paid a lot of attention to the height of bulkheads because, a few years ago, we were in the process of researching what to do for ours. And I wanted to even raise ours at the time, and we couldn't get approval for that. So we just maintained the same height. And it floods on very high tides. It still does flood occasionally. But I think, a full height bulkhead is definitely the right decision. As to the sand, what Aram calculated 8 months ago, or back in August, whatever that is, was 160 cubic yards. It's way more than that now, I think, but it's definitely grown. How much more, I don't know, but it has grown. So, it extends all the way in front of Brody and Ali and house, and halfway down their bulkhead. So, it's very obvious what has to be removed, because it's clean sand, and I think if you put a full height bulkhead back in, you're going to find that you need every bit of that sand just to replenish what is washed away, because that's where it came from. It didn't come from anywhere else. It came from that property. So putting it back, hopefully you have enough if they clean up everything that has spilled in. So I think it sounds like we're finally on the right track, and I appreciate everyone working on this. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay. As far as the low sill bulkheads in areas in back creeks and everything, we're trying to reduce the size of some of these bulkheads. And if we can go with more natural approach, that's what we try to aim for. In this situation, it's might not warrant that. So that's what initially we came up with the idea of that. That's to be consistent with our policies to reduce the amount of bulkheads and to add more wetlands to the system. Right. So it's a little bit different story here.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
May I just add one thing?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. It is fantastic to learn. And Ms. Vinjon, thank you for adding that the cubic yard, it wasn't a stagnant set number, and you recognize and you're part of the plan to make this area back. And if we dredge back to negative 1 foot, that would bring us back to whole according to Aram's plan. But it still doesn't, how do we address the shorelines and the shoal that has changed and grown in size? So the reclamation dredge, I understand it's the material from the property. So what happens with the affected surrounding areas that have been negatively impacted, and the shoal now crosses to Coalides at 69, where it once did not? So what happens with that material to bring us back to whole? How does that get
Well, what we'll do is we'll determine where the reclamation area, sand to reclaim it is going to come from. A plan of where it's going to come from.
So reclamation dredging is not only the material from the property. There could be a little areas around it that also need to be removed to bring us back to whole.
Well, I would say that they're responsible for taking their amount of sand. I mean, don't forget there's some other bulkheads along there that had fill behind them, but they don't have fill now. It's alterniflora behind there. So they've been leaking out too. And also have beach across the way too that's not contained too. So things are moving around. So it's not all, 65 cliffs.
No, and I'm not even claiming that. I don't even make a mention of that, but is there a way, is there like an in-between to say, my neighbors and I would like to clean up dredge-wise to bring us back to even better where we were before, but take away some of the material that we can see that has been growing because of this landslide there? Is that something fair that we could all look into?
Mr. President, it's George Colatides. If before you answer, if I could just add to what Tiffany is saying, this is material that they would not have released, but by virtue of the fact that they clogged up the canal, and by virtue of the fact that this is tidal water, as the tides move in and out, it pushes more up against the sand that they released. When that was flowing water, it moved in and out. And so while it's not their sand per se, they caused that additional buildup because the free flowing water stopped. And so they're above and beyond what has been released is pushing up into that. And you see that all the way out in that shoal. And you see that where all the way over towards my house and my dock, I'm losing water depth.
Mhm. All right, well, let's figure out how many yards we've got that we're gonna use for reclaiming, and then we'll take a look at the whole picture of the thing. You know, see where we're gonna get it from.
Thank you.
This, Mr. Schultz, this is where the bulkhead, these rocks on the original plan were
Mhm.
completely inside of the bulkhead.
Right.
So it looks to me, and again, I would defer to Aram, it looks to me that there is it's set back. There seems to be some negative space between those rocks and what's presented on the location. So I think we should just make sure that they're not coming further into the canal with their bulkhead. It should go at minimum where it was, if not more upland than in the water. It's a very narrow canal to begin with. So if they're putting it and proposing the location to be further into the canal, they're increasing their property and reducing our canal. So again, I think that would be for Aram and your environmental consultant and 65 Cliffs consultant to just make sure that it's in either the same place or upland and not going into the canal. Is that fair?
Tiffany,
Yeah, been a
Yes,
few
sir.
surveys on this property already, so we make sure that it follows the survey lines.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Bell? Mr. Warner?
Eric
Oh.
answered your question. I was going to say the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Well, Eric, one thing that should be made very clear is that it's going to be surveyed by a surveyor. There will be monument stakes and markers put there so that we can perceive the project as it's going to be prior to the bulkhead being replaced. I think it's really important that the bulkhead is the same height as what was removed, even though we're not going to get the environmental benefits as far as more wetlands, but we're also going to be able to stop the sand from flowing in there and take the sand that has been deposited on our bay bottom back behind the bulkhead, reconstitute the wetlands there as high marsh wetlands instead of low marsh wetlands. We also need to have a conversation with the Conservation Board, because being that we only have jurisdiction from the bulkhead 10 feet back, a lot of this material is going to go back even further upland. And we want to make sure that that whole area is restored, not just our jurisdiction, but from where the sand once was and where it came from. Another thought that I had is that the project, when the bulkhead is reconstructed, it should be dredged at low tide. So when you can actually see the contractor removing the sand, and when all the material is removed, we can go down there and physically measure 1 foot of water depth at low tide. If you do it at a higher tide, then with dredging, it's not a precise project. It becomes more of a question. So that way we can go down there and look at the whole entire stretch from east to west, having the sand removed and having 1 foot of water in this 10 feet off the bulkhead for the stretch along in front of the bulkhead and somewhat on each side of the bulkhead going into the neighbor's property.
Well, what we haven't established yet is they're going to reclaim in front of the bulkhead, but how far out? What is the channel that is going to width?
It used to be about 10 feet down there.
Somewhere in that vicinity.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
Okay.
Eric?
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just want to chime in with you on this. Going to have to, and I think there was some very good attestation relative to the condition and the height and size of the bulkhead prior to it being demolished and removed without our authorization. And it also has to be vetted through other regulatory authorities. So regardless of the plan we come up with, there's still going to have to be additional approvals that are going to have to be gained in order to be successful with this project in entirety. So, even though we could probably be making some progress here, I think there's going to have to be some additional discussions had moving forward with the state as well. So it's a good start. And I think you've got some good comments from the public, and I appreciate that because they were helpful. This is a very difficult and a very different situation. It's not every day that we have to deal with somebody that removes a bulkhead that was clearly functioning and creates negative impacts to the environment and surrounding waterways. And we're trying to clean that up for the health of all of, that environment that was altered. So thank you
Okay.
for your public comments.
Yep. And just a quick calculation, a 10-foot wide channel by 100 feet long by 1 foot deep is 27 yards. So that gives you just some starting point. That's a quick calculation. So that would be, if you talk 45 yards, that would give you a channel of at least 150 feet long by 10 foot wide by 1 foot deep. So,
Hey, Eric,
get that out. Yep. Yes.
are you going to have James go down there at low tide and do a report on it?
Yep. Yes.
Take measurements and some pictures?
Yep.
Like similar to what Tiffany did, but with numbers?
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Got to be precise with this.
Yes, maybe one of the trustees, maybe myself or someone else can go with him the day he's going to do it.
Yeah, I'll go down there. We actually have a transit that we use at Mecox, so we can establish a level too. So
Okay, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else from the public want to say anything on this? Okay. So make a motion.
Mr. Brody did.
Oh,
Yeah, he's got his hand up.
Okay, just a couple of things. I'm having a survey made as we speak. I will make that available to you as soon as I get it from Squires Holden, because I wanted to catalog the trees along my property line to make sure that the contractors next door don't knock them down. But
okay.
You can have that, and you will notice that it will show you where the property line is just by default, because we all agree that the retaining walls kind of lined up. So that might help you. I don't know if it'll be official help, but I will certainly make that available.
Well, every little bit helps. That's good. So yeah, just keep us in the loop.
Yes. Yes. So
okay.
Thank you, sir.
So what's the pleasure of the board? You want to adjourn this meeting to the next meeting, or do you want to close the public hearing and open it for public comment for 2 weeks?
I think it's a heavy lift to close this now. I think you should probably adjourn it, because I know that there's been a request from the applicant's representation that they wanted to review some findings. Is that correct? Of cubic yardage, did you want to review that?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. We want to be able to review and comment on whatever calculations the trustee staff comes up with. And I'm sure everyone else wants to review that as well. So we'd prefer if it was adjourned.
It makes more sense, I think, to just adjourn it.
Okay.
And then let's continue to diligently work on this. Like I said, it's different than things that we normally work on. We don't have people ripping bulkheads out that are functioning every day of the week. So let's adjourn this and let's
okay.
reconvene with more information.
I definitely think we should adjourn it, let James go down there and let him take some pictures and do a site visit and calculations, and have him come back to us with his findings. That he's our representative and representing, the board and the people of the town. So I think that would be very productive for us to do.
Okay.
I agree with Ed and Scott to adjourn it, and for the same reasons.
Okay.
The next meeting is June 7th.
Yeah, we'll adjourn it to June 7th. So if everybody's good with that, make a motion that we adjourn this meeting to the next regularly scheduled meeting, which is June 7th.
Second that.
Second.
As long as you're bringing cake.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. See you next time. Okay. Bring up my agenda again.
Thank you all for your time. Continued.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks for coming. Okay, next public hearing is an amendment on the Blue Book Article 7, Section 53, pier line in designated areas, F Sag Harbor Cove. This was Ann's area. Is there anyone speaking for it? Obviously, it's the applicant here.
Who needs to come in?
Matt Ivins.
Suffolk Environmental.
What's the name?
Matt Ivins.
No,
Okay.
Matt.
Suffolk
right.
Environmental.
Yeah, well, they made the application for the dock.
Yeah.
Who?
Mike is here.
Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Mike who?
Mike Piano from
Interscience.
Science.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, I thought that
Matt Ivins.
Environmental was handling this. It was their application, wasn't it, on the dock that prompted this?
Mike also has interest in this. Did you want to speak, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, if Matt's not here, then I can just say something. I had a question about it based on an application that we were putting in on Morris Cove. So I just had some comments from what I've observed on some things. If you want me to talk about it.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Would I be able to share my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So I guess my main question for the board would be about, so the change that's being made is to just change the number of the distance that docks can extend from in Sag Harbor Cove from 60 feet to 75 feet. My question is whether the board has the intent to have that distance be measured in the entire Sag Harbor Cove complex, or if it should be separated out, or if the board would want to separate that out based on the names of the water bodies that the town GIS maps indicate. So in some earlier maps, I believe that the town trustees and other maps also, it's not just the town trustees, it's these areas have changed on maps for a while. The entire body of Sag Harbor Cove has been referred to as the Sag Harbor Cove Complex, Upper and Lower Sag Harbor Cove, and other various names depending on what document you're reading. Right now, the town GIS indicates that Sag Harbor Cove extends from the 114 bridge. This is the town GIS right now that you guys are looking at, all the way around until you get to probably about this, for lack of a better word, intersection towards Ligony Creek, and then it changes into Upper Sag Harbor Cove, and then this little area is Morris Cove.
Yes.
In my previous conversations with Trustee Welker and with James about this, I believe that the town's interpretation was that Morris Cove is part of Sag Harbor Cove, so that was which I'm fine with. I just thought that maybe because the maps that the town provides labels these things as different water bodies, it may be confusing for some applicants, that perhaps either list them all if that is the intent, or to separate them out, or make some specification that it is only supposed to be in Sag Harbor Cove, and that the other bodies, the smaller bodies over here, would follow the 100-foot or 2.5-foot depth requirement of the earlier section of the code, which I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, but and part of I know that part of the reason for I'm assuming that part of the reason for the this requirement is, and I'm trying to find the map that I have that shows this. Just give me 1 second. So this is a map that the Village of Sag Harbor has put out that just shows the navigation channels. And I understand that the reason may be for the dock length limitation would be to ensure that boats can pass and repass in front and near the navigation channels and within the shoreline area. And when you get into Morris Cove, that navigation channel does end before it enters the cove itself. The navigation channel does go into Upper Sag Harbor Cove here. And so I just was wondering whether the trustees would want to provide further specifications in this new law update to make it more clear. And that's really all I was questioning. So
It's a great comment, Mike. I think it definitely has to get better clarification, no doubt, because it's going to create confusion. And I think there may be some areas things work, some areas things don't work. And those are excellent comments, and I appreciate you taking the time to make them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Ann, what was the delineation that you had proposed?
Do you mean as far as where within the cove?
Yeah, this amendment.
I was looking, I was just looking back, James, perhaps you could, what's the current language specifically in the blue book, or perhaps Sean?
65 feet.
Yeah, it's highlighted. The only
No,
section from 60 to 75. The only thing changed is the strike through and the underlined numbers.
So it only.
James has up.
I actually just happened to have the code open, this local law open. So if you guys wanted to use it for discussion, that's fine. So the change was this from 60 feet to 75 feet.
Right, that's the only change there.
Right, I'm aware of that, but my specifically, I'm addressing your comments, which were very helpful. So thank you, Mike. So it's very loose right now as far as it's only state Sag Harbor Cove. So I think that we could indeed be more specific and perhaps denote Upper, Lower Morris Cove, and perhaps even Ligony Brook. And Paynes Creek, that would be covering all of the water bodies within the cove.
It
correct?
should read the Sag Harbor Cove Complex. That covers everything.
Well,
just like the Bonnet Complex.
Before we do that, Ed, I mean, there's all kinds of different arms of that.
I know there is.
So, I mean, if you want to be specific, I mean, like I had to do down in Onek there, we were specific from delineated it from Onek Road to Onek Drain, where we had to enlarge that area. So, I mean, you have to do a study on this and determine if you just can't just jump it up to 75 feet throughout the cove, and it might affect people in other areas where there's shallower water, or the channels are closer to one side or another.
I agree with you, Eric, because I thought the conversation that we were having with Matt Ivins was specific to around Bay Point, that little island as you first come into Cove. In that area specific, going from Bay Point to up to Noyak Road. I thought that was the area we were talking about.
Right. That's what I thought also, because they had done the research on it, and they had done depth, and they calculated the line of where docks should be. So that was site specific.
Correct.
The reason why these came into effect, these pier lines and everything, was to get some sort of control over things and keep them at a minimum size, as a blanket approach, and then to be changed later on under site-specific conditions. Right. So where are we talking about, and where are we talking about the delineation of this thing from one property to another?
So that's something we'll have to take a look at then.
No, we already discussed this. We have a site-specific area that we were going to look at this public hearing and possibly changing. I thought it was around Bay Point in that area. That was
okay.
Matt Ivins should be here to give us a little bit of information that he is being able to, come up with too.
Well, I think then you need to have a point A and a point B of where this is going to be
Right.
applicable. Otherwise, it's going to create a lot of confusion and perhaps unintended consequences.
Yes.
So why don't you take a look at, hey, it's going to work from point A to point B. This area, you could do this, and in other areas, perhaps it's not appropriate.
Tax
Okay.
map, the tax map number.
Right.
Yeah, because some of these docks, if you make them 75 feet in these coves that are like teacups, you're going to cut off your neighbor's ability to access their property. That's why the dock lengths were so much shorter in Sag Harbor, because the shoreline is not a straight shoreline. There's a lot of undulations and a lot of curves, a lot of rocks in there, a lot of channels being cut in there. So that's why I thought this public hearing was specific to the area that Matt Ivins was working on and had given us the information as far as water depths, obstructions on the bottom, and properties.
Mm-hmm.
So that was
But
my
I
understanding.
Yeah, I don't.
So what I've also experienced, though, in addition to the Bay Point area, is within Upper Sag Harbor Cove off of Glover Street. And there is more sedimentation, I believe, throughout the Sag Harbor Cove complex due to the degradation of water quality, the disappearance of the eelgrass there, and also the degradation of the shoreline and the compromisation of the Spartina along that shoreline. So it's created more sediment in there. So I think that's what would be, if we're to do this one section at a time or a couple sections at a time, would soundings be the best way to do this?
Thing to do is I did in West Hampton. You go out there with the Bay Constable with a stick and you measure out, and then you determine what's realistic now.
Okay. So we have a little more work to do on this, obviously, and we need Mike here, and Mike, thank you for being here. We need Matt here as well, because he did a fair amount of research on the Bay Point area. So I'd like to adjourn this public hearing at this point.
June 7th. Okay, so you're making a motion to turn the public hearing to June 7th?
Yes.
Can I make one comment? Are we going to be talking about a site specific to this public hearing, or are we going to do the whole Sag Harbor Cove? Because you're kind of leaving it open, because I thought we were having site specific an area around Bay Point. And that's where we should.
If you want to go specific, we're going to have to renotice this. This was noticed for Sag Harbor Cove. The way it's worded implies the whole thing. If you wanted to break it down, we really need to prepare a new notice of public hearing and move forward that way.
Well, I don't think it's fair for a consultant to do all this work for us and then now get involved in a larger scope project that might take half a year to do. I think we ought to designate what we're talking about, like Ed said, from property number 0900 to 0900, and get this one over with. And then if it's then when the next one comes around, the rest of it, then we can look at it, because this was just a myopic view right now.
Right.
So that
not an application we're talking about right now. We're on a public hearing to amend the Blue Book. So this is your upper limit. So that does not mean you have to grant permits that are 75 feet out in length. That means that's your maximum that's permissible.
Right.
You can hear this?
Yeah, vaguely.
So on each application, you are setting site-specific conditions. This would just be.
I like Ed's idea. Just do a certain stretch of properties along that shoreline.
Yes, that's what I thought we were doing.
Right.
That's what I thought we were doing also.
We have the momentum right now. Let's get this over with.
Well, but Sean, from a legal standpoint, if we're going to go to point A to point B and refine that down to a shorter scope, can we handle that within the same public hearing properly, or no? So what he's saying is
for that.
Right. So from a legal standpoint, to accomplish what I think everybody.
And we'd be shooting for June 21st.
Well, all right, so let's get the site-specific properties that we need to have in a public hearing and do it, because this is what I thought we were doing initially. And then when
Request of my
the
office
whole-
was to change 60 to 75.
Yes, but somewhere's got lost in the
More-
translation here.
It got
I
too
mean-
broad.
Yep, and why I wanted this to move forward, and I discussed it with Ann and briefly with Matt, is this area will accommodate these longer docks because it's a little bit more open area, and it will also get away from the very large rocks that are very close to the shoreline in there, where some of the docks actually have a boulder as big as the boat sitting next to them. So why don't we make sure, if we're gonna re-notice it, that we have a specific area with intent to do this, and then renotice it and move forward on it, because I think it's the right thing to do in the area that we would have previously discussing.
Right.
Okay.
If the board
Sean.
is trying to accommodate a 75-foot dock, you certainly could close this, adopt this as it's amended, and then go back and make any further changes. If 75 is the limit you'd like to get to, we could actually use this public hearing that we've already scheduled to make that change, is what I'm trying to say.
Can we take it like this? Can we adopt the 75-foot pier limit in all of Sag Harbor Cove, but upon specific site situations that the dock may be shorter and, for navigation, obstruction and stuff like that?
Right, I've already stated.
Hey, Bill, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is reviewed by the board. So 75 does not mean you're allowed 75. 75 means that is your maximum limit.
I mean, I gave this information to Ann already.
They're listening to you. They can hear you.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if 75 is going to do it for me.
Well,
I guess that's
Why
fine.
don't we just adjourn it and I can give you guys the information again?
Okay.
I mean, I'll spell it out.
That's Matt Adams. He's on the phone, on speakerphone. He's listening.
Do you want to just adjourn it and I'll give you specific information?
Yeah, that's what we need.
Yeah, let's adjourn it to the next meeting. Let's adjourn it to the next meeting. Keep
Yeah,
it going.
we're talking hypothetically here, guys, and it's not gonna work.
We have a motion on the floor by trustee Welker to adjourn this to June 7th.
Yes, I second it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Let's get a site-specific from point A to point B, and then we'll adjust it as we go.
Okay.
May I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Okay. Trustee Welker, would you like, can we discuss 28 Long Point Road at this, or I guess you'd have to notice it in order for it to happen. I guess we could just, I wasn't sure if I should have some information about our site-specific property at the June 7th hearing, or?
I'll talk to you offline.
Sure,
Mike.
perfect.
I don't think that would be appropriate. We're talking about a specific area that the board all thought that this was going to be site-specific, not the entire cove. So now we're bringing something else into it. I think
Understood.
that, the rest of the board really wanted to concentrate on this particular area first.
Okay.
And then a more detailed analysis of the rest of the creek would be in order to see if those rules and regulations should be changed. Okay.
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 Thank you, President Schultz.
Okay.
And thanks to Sean and James for keeping me in the loop on this.
Okay. Great.
Good time, Mike.
Well,
Thank you.
okay. My phone keeps on. What's the next item on the agenda? I'm looking at the phone. It keeps on going blacking
Public
out.
portion. Public portion.
Okay, public portion. Who we have? Anybody?
You can see some hands.
Okay.
I see no hands. Oh, now I do.
Okay.
Okay. Mark, put your video on, please.
I think it's Mark Halves. He did contact me earlier today.
There you go. Unmute. There you go.
Good afternoon, guys.
Hi.
I guess last meeting you guys talked about the Far Pond possibly getting a mechanical dredge in there.
Sir, can you please state your name for the record? Excuse me.
Mark Haves, Haves, 16 Phillips Lane,
Thank you.
Southampton, New York. Last 2 weeks ago, you guys talked about getting a mechanical dredge to widen the channel at Far Pond. And I guess I spoke with Ed over the weekend, and he said that's not going to happen. And I'm curious as to why we get, one question, one answer, another answer. And I was able to go out to Far Pond. I was able to get out of Far Pond on Sunday at high tide, and it was 2.5 feet deep at its deepest point. And then Ed said, well, you got to go over to Middle Pond, and they have a problem over there. And I went over there, and that was 6 feet. So that was the high tide. Obviously, Middle Pond is significantly bigger, and I think that's just a magnificent place. But I'm pretty sure, after living there for 8 years, the Spartina has moved back, and I believe that it would be anywhere between 6 and 8 inches of less water coming into the pond.
Mhm.
So,
Well, as I said to you last week, we did now receive all the bathymetric details from Suffolk County. So Ed, are you aware of that we got all the information from them? Ed?
You're muted, Ed.
Sorry. Yes, I understand that we had gotten the information from Suffolk County on their survey that they did in 3 days down there this spring. Also, we had the Bay Constables go down there and do a bathymetric survey, and it all, basically is the same. I've been there in my boat too, and I walked, with boots down there, and there literally is no water at low tide, which we were pretty much all aware of. But we need to get this together and apply to the state for an emergency dredge. I don't believe that they would allow emergency dredge because it's getting shallow. I also have talked to the Bay Constables because I guess there was someone that was down there, a missing person, and they had to do a search with many of the departments. And the Bay Constables did a report that it was extremely shallow, that they could not get their boats in and out. And because of that, that would be a good reason to have the channel dredged, to have emergency responders be able to get their equipment easily in there and do a search. So we're compiling information that will hopefully give us the upper hand to be able to get this dredged. I don't see the DEC allowing us, because it's not navigable, to say we're going to do a dredging, because there's no environmental issue, there's no health issue, there's no bigger issues. But if we can make a case as far as emergency responders not being able to access Middle Pond or Far Pond during a tidal cycle, that might give us a little bit more of a leg up to get this done.
Well, we have the drone footage now. We have actual depth soundings from the Bay Constables, and we have regular photos. So I think we're ready to submit something to the DEC and put it in their court. I mean, This is really getting ridiculous that we're caught in the middle all the time with Far Pond, Middle Pond, Carter Creek, Mecox Bay, and all the other tributaries where they just sit there and do nothing. As much as they say, oh, we're going to do something for you, it's lip service 90% of the time.
Well, Wednesday we'll have the report sent over to our attorney. I will sit with Sean Cambridge and help him craft a letter that we could send off to the DEC and plead our case as far as having an emergency to open that channel up to safe navigation.
Just to be clear, you'd be requesting an emergency authorization, and we'd have to plead an emergency condition to get that type of authorization. So I request the police reports from the Bay Constable to see if this is the case, and if we can confirm that's what the report states, we can use that as an authorization application.
They don't seem to be concerned with the health of the water body at all. The Department of Environmental Conservation. And that's where we are right now, unfortunately. So, unfortunately, we're on the front line and we're the least capable unless we break the law and then get into a multi-million-dollar lawsuit with the DEC with our limited budget.
Well, I'm curious as to what, and I've never, tried to figure out how much it might cost to open that up, but
minimal.
When you say minimal, $3,000?
Probably.
2 machines at $1,500 a day and 2 operators.
Yeah.
Probably about $4,500 all said and done.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
we're close.
Okay. So if we were to give you the trustees that money, would that help?
No, the problem is that we're doing something without a permit. And if we don't have the town board backing us up, we're out there swinging because we would have, the DEC would be suing us or giving us fines and everything. And then we would have to pay it. And we don't have the ability, unfortunately, to control our own finances as far as the same as the town does. We're not even have the same status as a fire district, where we can raise funds as we need them.
Right.
So we're relying on
without a permit.
Excuse me.
So the key here is the town aware, Southampton aware of the situation, guys?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I had a conversation with the supervisor today, and we're scheduling have a meeting scheduled for next week to discuss the overall situation of the dredging problems in the DEC that we have in the town.
Okay, thank you. That's well. So really, we have to get that emergency permit, and it's not the money at all. It's really the emergency permit.
Right.
You've explained it nicely, and
we need the town board behind us. To have our back.
Thank you. I mean,
okay, we're trying.
So I guess I have to lobby the town board a little bit
after next week.
Okay,
Scott, did you have something to say?
No, I'm just saying it's just a more complex issue than it always meets the eye. We're doing what we can, from an advocacy standpoint, but it's always a heavier lift than it appears. And it always ends up taking more time when you're trying to do things the right way. So we'll just keep doing the best we can. Okay.
And is there a time frame after June 20th you can't, get in there, or, how does that work? Because I would hate to say that the whole summer, and that's really what I'm worried about, the fact that the pond won't be receiving as much water, and obviously the sun, July and August, the damage might occur to the pond.
They can bend
and I'm not a scientist by any stretch of imagination. It's just common sense in my eyes.
Right. They can bend rules whatever way they want to.
So you could actually get this done July 1st if they wanted to.
Right.
Okay.
Just to let you know, the county used to dredge basically 365 days out of the year. literally from the whole entire Suffolk County. So there's rules and regulations that have been put in place, whether it's the winter flounder, birds, the clams, or some species that spawns, and and they would have to do a analysis of what time of year, what does what down there, and it would all come with the permit. If they had issued an emergency permit, those timeframes would be all in that permit, and they would do their fish people would do an analytic report on it, and that's not even getting Fish and Wildlife and the Army Corps involved. That's just the DEC. So there's, it's if one says yes, the other might say no. So there's a whole layer of bureaucracy that we have to push this through. And we've asked for this in the past. They've been reluctant to give any changes, but all we can do is ask with the proper documentation on this project.
And have you done something like this in the past? I mean, where you brought in a mechanical machine to just widen it?
Yes,
sure.
Fresh Pond down in North Sea.
And,
we had a barge mounted excavator, and we got an exemption on from the DEC to do it that way instead of hydraulically. This is something that we've done in the past, but there was an active permit on that project. We're asking for something that doesn't have a permit to be done right now.
Well, the county has a permit,
right?
But don't have the ability to use their hydraulic dredge. So what we wanted them to do was to just, and they said that they would bring their excavator down and do the same job that the hydraulic dredge was going to do. And all the DEC had to do was change 2 words on that permit: hydraulic dredge or a land-based excavator. Okay. And they said that would take like 5 months. There's an absolute collapse in basically all forms of government right now. It's very frustrating. We're ready to do it. We're ready to do it tomorrow.
Eric, thank you. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and my tears are going into the pond.
Well said. All right, well, keep on it. Come back to the next meeting.
I will. Thank you.
And please send a letter to our office, reference this conversation and what your experience as a boater. That would help us, submit the backup documentation.
An email's fine too.
Yes.
And that goes to Lisa, I guess? Yes. Okay. Yes.
Every little bit. Okay, well, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Yeah, I have one more.
Okay.
John Holson. John. Start your video, John. There you go. And unmute.
Unmute. There you go.
It's on you.
You're up, Mr. Halsey.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us, John?
Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were speaking to me.
All right, there you go.
You do have a question?
I have a comment about Mecox Bay.
Okay.
Actually, I have a mystery. 2 years ago, plus or minus, the trustees, slightly different board, after many public hearings and comment periods, unanimously approved application for 10-year permit and sent it to the DEC. Approximately 2 weeks ago, plus or minus, the DEC was told to stop work on the application. It is a slightly different board of trustees with, to my knowledge, no public hearings or comment, and perhaps not even a full board vote. I understand the issue was the width of the long channel to be dredged at some time in the future. Was in the application at 10 feet, and the feeling is it should be 200 feet. This change will hold up the management plan for a long time, as any change will be studied and studied and studied. We can't wait any longer. The regular maintenance of Mecox Bay must be put back into local control. The 10-year permit will do this. It's been said by the trustees, the problem lies completely with the DEC. The DEC says the problem lies completely with the trustees. I was involved in a similar situation with the ag industry some time ago. Fortunately, a few forward-thinking farmers and regulators were willing to work together and compromise, developing a workable arrangement that continues today. I've talked directly with the Bayman about the burden of government regulations on their business. However, they seem to be complying and still operating. I'm fully aware that for a self-employed, industrious person to have to deal with slow-moving government agency is the pits. However, it is the law and it can be worked out. Honey attracts, vinegar repels. Finally, if you continue to stop the work on the management plan application by the DEC, the mystery I have will be solved. My only conclusion would be you don't care about the welfare of the shellfish, the erosion of wetlands, the flooding of home basements, overflowing septic systems, dying crops, and flooded farm fields as much as a 200-foot width of a channel that may get dug once a year. Please act on that management plan and let's get going on this. Thank you.
Okay, so let me clarify a few things. When this permit was applied for originally, which expired in 2016, which they've been reviewing for, what, 5 years now? This permit was basically the mirror of the original permit that the DEC issued prior to this, a 200-foot wide channel running through the flats all the way into the surf zone. Now, over the course of the years, the environmental division wrote a very inflammatory letter to the DEC, and the DEC then told our consultant that the DEC they'd only grant a 10-foot wide channel through the flats. Now, everyone who has managed that cut to this date all says, and also our coastal erosion expert says that you need that 200-foot channel to get enough head pressure to blow through that 10-foot wide channel that we do through the by the sill of the beach. All we were asking for from the very beginning was for the DEC to grant us a renewal of a permit that they had issued twice previously for a 200-foot wide channel to get that head pressure up. They're the ones that changed it to 10. It's an absolutely unworkable plan that if we do the 10-foot, if they do give us a permit, that is going to be a waste of CPF money because it's going to fill in almost automatically. Everyone is basically consistent on this. So what we said to the DEC was, look, we had a conversation with them last week. We said, we want you to issue the original permit, a renewal of the original permit. And they said, well, we believe that that permit was issued in error. So, well, really? So if it was in error, then why during the 10-year period that it was in effect, didn't the DEC come around and say something about it? And they had no answer. Then we asked them how long it was going to take. Now they're required within 90 days of the end of a public hearing to act on a permit. They have not done so. We're past that, which will require us to go to the commissioner now and force them to issue a permit that is not going to work. When I asked them how long it was going to take with the permit as at 10 foot, they had no answer. They said maybe at the end of the year. They are not imminently going to issue this permit. They said that right to me and Ann. Then I asked them, I said, well, let's run two scenarios. That we make a modification to the plan, which, by the way, they had no public hearing on the previous 200-foot plan of years ago. They had no public hearings. They just issued it. Now, all of a sudden, they need all these public hearings. I asked them, I said, well, if they have if we send in a modification right now, and you're going to issue the permit and we send in a modification, how long would that take? We can't tell you. If we stop the permit right now, right, and we say, look, we want a modification right now, how long is it going to take if we change the 10 foot to the 200? We can't tell you. We don't know. So they have absolutely no, they're just not going to tell you anything. And basically what I think they want to do is to force us to go to the commissioner of the DEC to activate the 5-day rule to force the DEC in Albany to issue a permit so they can wipe their hands of it. Nobody wants to make a decision down there. So then I offered the suggestion that if there's a controversy about the efficacy of the 200-foot wide channel, I said, we have a coastal expert that is world-renowned, has advised countries on coastal policies, and has just been appointed to a blue ribbon panel by the state of Virginia to assess their how they're going to deal with ocean level rise. I said, why don't we have our guy talk to your coastal geologist and maybe they can come up with something? And they said, we don't have a coastal geologist. So it's a bunch of people up in Stony Brook that are just making decisions based on nothing. They're just holding things up. The only thing that I can think of is that they're angry at us because we won on the fish license case. Frankly, I've never worked with people like that in my life, as far as not giving you a straight answer on anything and won't commit to anything. But it's 200-foot wide channel from our expert and from previous trustees who have managed that cut say there's absolutely not going to work. And besides, we don't even have a permit now. And they won't issue us a permit even to go through the flats because of the piping plovers. And when they were confronted with the fact that by having the flats flooded, which is prime piping plover habitat, that they just completely ignore that. So if you drained the bay and you had an interaction, you'd be creating 5 to 6 acres of prime plover habitat. That doesn't seem to have any phase on them at all. So they've been looking at this permit for 5 years, and we tell them 2 weeks ago that we wanted to modify it, and now all of a sudden it's our fault for holding this thing up, when they're not taken to task for taking 5 years to issue a permit that they had looked at and approved the last time and the time before that. So, I mean, go ahead.
I don't think we're talking about the same permit. The one I'm talking about was the one passed unanimous vote by the Board of Trustees when you were not on the Board of Trustees. That's all I'm talking about. And all I'm talking about is the regular maintenance of the bay. The once in a year or once in 5 year digging to the deep water in the bay is a separate issue and can be dealt with through the modification paragraph in the permit or in the application that is applied for now. I would prefer not to speak anymore. I would like James McGregor to speak.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just going to advise the board to limit discussion on pending permit application, please? Thank you.
Why?
We
Why
can
is it?
speak privately. That's my advice to you as a board, though.
Mr. McGregor?
I don't seem to have video. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I hear you, but we saw you before, Mr. McGregor, but we don't see you now.
Well,
I
life is
can
like
fix that.
You can fix that?
Let's not worry about it. I'm not that beautiful anyway.
Okay.
We did see you about 5-10 minutes ago.
Okay, quick report from the bays of Newcox Bay, which is, the farmers are still worried about losing this year's crops. The baymen are still worried about there being no meat or not much meat in the shellfish.
Right.
And the homeowners who are trying to sell their homes find that buyers walk away when they go down to the basement and they see 2 or maybe even 3 sump pumps hard at work. Now, you guys have all heard this story before. You've been hearing it for 8 years. And it didn't change any 18 months ago when the management plan got passed because it wasn't followed by a permit. So 10 days ago, I had a conversation with the regional general counsel of the DEC. And he talked about the town trustees somewhat critically. A few days later, I had a conversation with your president, Eric Schultz, and he had pretty much the same view of the DEC that the DEC had of the town trustees. And the problem is, both gentlemen made a lot of good points, but this isn't a debating contest, and winning debate points isn't getting us to a resolution. So I want to go back to my conversation with the DEC guy, because he was calling me on the direct order of the commissioner of the DEC. And so he knew that whatever he said to me was probably going to come back to his boss. And at some point in the conversation, I said to him, so if the town trustees revived the permit application that is currently on the table, how long would it take before we had a permit in hand? And he said, Memorial Day. Now that was 10 days ago, so make it now, 3 weeks from now, whatever. But that was what he said. It was not what he said in your meeting with you, Eric and Ann. So,
Right.
We got a gap there already. But then I said, so what happens if they don't renew that, but instead bring in a modified application? How long will that take? And he really, really, really didn't want to give me an answer. He said, well, it's going to depend on whether we need research, whether we need public hearings, whether we need this, whether we need that. After a few minutes, I just gave up. My ballpark from what he was saying was somewhere in the 2 to 12 months range, which is a big wide range. But that's sort of where we are right now. So my problem is that, back on the shores of Mecox Bay, people are just worn out. They're exhausted, they're disgusted, they're unhappy, they don't understand what's going on, they have no patience left, and their faith in the trustees is at pretty low ebb. So what they need to see is something good happening fast. I don't know what that could be, but there we are. But I want to sort of tag this to something that the case officer at the Army Corps of Engineers, who's responsible for this area, said to me a while back, which he said, the town trustees are the only entity that is responsible for the best interests of the people of the town. Every other entity is responsible for some other thing. And if you see something that actually needs to be done imminently for the benefit of the people of the town and which can't wait, you just go and do it. And we, the Army Corps, will give you a retroactive permit as long as you don't cause irreparable damage. I think you need to keep that in your head. You've got a bunch of people right now who are in really urgent straits, and they need some help from you that doesn't have to wait a year. And I don't know what that help is, because I'm not the pro in this area and you guys are. But I really want to urge you to see what you can do that maybe is, maybe a little different from what has been happening.
Mr. McGregor?
Sir.
Scott Horowitz.
Hi.
Just wanted to, I know Sean said, don't speak, but I know we worked on this for years past.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to tell you, I'm quite frustrated myself. Myself and Trustee Warner went to many meetings up at Stony Brook. They seemed to pull the fire alarm every time we went up there, and we'd lose 25 minutes in the parking lot. But I want to take you back to a meeting that we had at the Peconic Land Trust, where we had representation from every level of government, from Congress right on down. Okay. And I heard, and we had U.S. Fish and Wildlife on the phone, and everybody was having a meeting, and Assemblyman Thiel was there. There was representation from Senator Lavalle's office, Congressman Zeldin's office, Conservation Board, Town Environment Division, attorneys, everybody was there. And I heard back then that we were going to have permit pretty quick. What was holding us up was the management plan, the Mecox management plan, and we diligently worked hard. We had people that were tasked with having to combine the commentary and concerns of that quite frankly, I think dropped the ball on us, and we picked up that ball, and we collectively, you, Mr. Halsey, we collectively put that together. We passed that management plan, and we said, here you go. And we also told the public, we told everybody, we understand we may have to make changes to this based on commentary from the other regulatory authorities. So we built flexibility into it. And we also said that there would be times when Mother Nature would deal us a blow and we would have to deviate because we can't control Mother Nature. And I got to tell you, okay, the fact that we're still operating off of emergency authorizations with no ability to implement, that management plan is very frustrating to me. Okay, I'm here for the mission. I wanted to see us all collectively complete the mission for the public health and safety of everybody that lives and enjoys Mecox Bay, for the farmers, for the commercial fishermen, trustees that own all that shellfish on the bottoms of that bay. That I thought was a great meeting to pull that many people together in that venue. Farm Bureau, I think, was there. Everybody was there. I don't understand. I really don't. I know we had the pandemic and it changed things around, but this was well before the pandemic. I don't understand what the breakdown was from that point forward and what the excuse is for where we are today. And I really would like to deal principle to principle. I know you're making phone calls. I want to make some phone calls to higher up. Say, listen, everybody has to have respect for each other and working together, for the resource, the environment. That's why we're here. I want answers. I want to know why, what is going on here, because it makes no good sense to me. Everybody passing the buck. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's not mine. It's enough already. That's why we called everybody into Peconic Land Trust to go time out. Let's all work together and get it done. All right. Now, I live this thing. I'm as frustrated as you are. And, Eric and Ann, that they've kind of taken the forefront, and I'm here to back up whatever I can back up and help wherever I can to fill out. But I have full respect and confidence in folks that are handling things. But I tell you what, I really want to make some phone calls myself, and I really want to get some answers, just out of respect for the fact that, personally, I spend a lot of my time working with you all and with them, and have delivered everything hand in hand, in my view, that was requested, and have complied with emergency authorizations to the letter. All right. And I really think that based on the past history and based on the great effects of that are needed to occur, that would happen to the farmers and the fishermen if it's not done correctly, it's just, I need some answers. I'm further insulted. Well, maybe insulted is a little strong. Perplexed. I'm perplexed. I sat through a series of meetings about creating a plan, a workable plan, or some type of plan for Western Shinnecock Bay to alleviate water quality issues in Western Shinnecock Bay. And that's my area as a trustee, that I take care of it. And that's where I live, and I care about it very much. But I know the state of New York or whatever spent probably a couple of $100,000 with engineers on a plan that would take $100 million that we don't have to come to fruition with $1 million price tag on an annual cost, which where's that all coming from? What I didn't understand was why we didn't take that time, that energy, that investment and put it to Mecox Bay, a water body that needs to be managed for water quality and has been for centuries. I just think it would have been a better use of time and money to say, look, let's solve problem A first and maybe use it as a template before we try and attack something that's $100 million. It's frustrating to me. And I know you guys are frustrated. Okay.
I appreciate all the things you're saying. I mean, I can't disagree with anything you've said. The problem with the Peconic Land Trust meeting was everybody walked away holding hands and singing Kumbaya, and nobody took charge afterward.
Well, I think somebody was supposed to take, in all fairness, I think there was some directives of what some people were supposed to do. And I think the bottom line is that we tried to get those certain people to do what they were supposed to do. And we hit a point where we actually had to take matters into our own hands. And that's what we did. We took them into our own hands. Then we did that. Then there was the criticism of what we did. And I think what happened is that when the criticism of what we did occurred, it sent mixed messages. Well, what do you mean, Scott, mixed messages? Because no one ever set officially the record straight. I think that when commentary went after at least three public hearings, and after all of your input, and after everything that we did, conversations were had, a plan was adopted, it was forwarded, the criticisms in letter written form went to every single regulatory authority under the sun on town letterhead. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the record was never set straight. So the mixed messages sent to those regulatory authorities were, is the town on board with the trustees? Are they not on board? Are they worried about this? Are they worried about that? I asked that record to be set straight. That record needed to be set straight because in all honesty and in all fairness, the town trustees, the town board, the town supervisor should be standing shoulder to shoulder to be successful with the state of New York, Army Corps of Engineers, U.S. Fish and Wildlife. We should be shoulder to shoulder. The supervisor should be in this trench with the town board because you are all paying substantial tax revenues, and all of Mr. Halsey's activities greatly affect this community, as does commercial fishermen and everybody else. I said, could you please just set this record straight? Is this how the town really feels about what we have adopted? What I heard was, no, we're with you. This is a great plan. Okay, set the record straight, please. Never happened. Okay, so when you send mixed messages out to other regulatory authorities, combined with the threat of litigation, as Sean said, you guys should zip it. He's probably going to yell at me after the meeting, but the facts are the facts. It is what it is. I got elected to serve the public. I've tried to serve the public. I tried to complete the mission. I tried to be diplomatic, be flexible, be reasonable, provide all the commentary that a representative of government should provide, what the concerns are from the citizens on public health and safety and our charge for the environment and the shellfish in the bottom. I tried to do all of the above. Okay, to get met with the same frustration that you folks all have. So at this stage of the game, I have no choice as an elected official and a person that spent a lot of time to be making a lot of phone calls on my own to be getting answers to things because it's just not acceptable. I'm sorry, but this is not acceptable. And if there's a question 200 feet or 10 feet, there should be a rationale. Look, they need to work. It needs to flow. We opened up Mecox. How long did it flow for, Ann?
Days.
Tell me.
Which time?
Just this last time. How long did we flow?
7 days.
7 days.
Give or
they
take.
wanted us, everybody was talking about these different reports and how long it should drain. And we in that case, settled on a number of days. You had other people that were more concerned. They wanted to go longer days. You had other people shorter days. We're nowhere near that number, and it shut itself down. And the time prior to that, it shut itself down a lot sooner than that. So if we're going to have openings, and they have to be successful openings, it has to properly flush. And I go back to, we spent $200,000 on an engineering study of something that may happen 50 years from now. How about we spend that money and time on something like figure out really how much of that sand needs to come off of that delta and get back in the littoral system, which in my understanding, that's what the DEC wants to do. It wants to take some of that sand that's trapped in that bay and put it in that littoral system to protect homes and have wide beaches. And of course, we're all for that, but they need to give us the authority to do that. We can't do that without them giving us the authority to do that. So I just see a tremendous breakdown of communication. I see paralysis by analysis. I see people that should be working together, not working together. I see mixed messaging that is causing anxiety and concern combined with the threat of pending litigation. These are all recipes for nothing's getting done, and it has to stop. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry that I've vented. Okay. I've listened to everybody and I've worked on this for a long time. That's the way I see it. I'm going to be making some phone calls too, because it's just not acceptable. We're creating problems that we shouldn't be creating. We should be solving problems. So.
And Scott, let me ask you a question. Isn't it true that the DEC permit is not even going to address the management plan? Correct?
No, that's correct, because it's not. There's going to be no tie-in now. After the excuse was, okay, we're not doing anything till the trustees give us a management plan. The trustees are holding it up because they didn't management plan. 10 years of management. Here's your management plan. 3 public hearings. We addressed everything. All right. And then they say, no, we're going to set our own terms and conditions. That's a local issue. We don't want to tread in your local issue. We're not going to tie this permit to that plan.
Right.
What have you been doing? What have you had us doing for all these years? I don't have much hair left to pull out. Okay. That's what they told us. Then they switched gears on us. Okay. Folks, I know you're frustrated. I'm frustrated. Okay. I represented as when I was there and when I was going to these meetings with Trustee Warner and with all you folks through the various different public hearings and whatnot, tried everything we could to bring all the concerns and say, please, this is a big problem. To make it solely the responsibility of this 5-member, poorly funded historical board is irresponsible. I've said that in the past. You need to help us. You need to be, just like they said, it's our responsibility to bring the concerns of the community. We've done that. We've done that. It's their responsibility to respect what we have done and respect the fact that we've been elected to represent the public, and we've gone above and beyond to try and articulate what the concerns of this region is. I will look anybody in the eye, and if you want to debate that with me, have at it, because I know we have. All right. If they want to have concerns about 200 or 10 feet, or I'm not an expert in engineering of water. No. But you certainly knew how to spend money for another part of the town to work out all kinds of stuff. They could have done that here. Okay. And we would have been somewhere perhaps if that's what their concern is. So this is just common sense to me, folks. Common sense.
They're still working on that plan, Scott, and their main proposal is to establish a pipe or like a culvert and direct the Atlantic Ocean to this culvert so it can flow back and forth at a certain time. They are going to direct the Atlantic Ocean.
Look, I looked at the numbers. These things are 80 million, 100 million with costs and price tags that are 7 figures on an annual basis. We're nowhere near that. Okay. We need everybody around the table, and we need answers. Okay. These folks really should not have to be making phone calls and running all that. We're the representative of them. Okay. And we need to demand answers. And you know what? I respect people. I treat them with respect, and I expect that in return. Okay. And I take my position as trustee very seriously. Okay. I never said to anybody, oh, that's not my area. I'm not working. No, I work just as hard for every single area and person in this town as I do for my assigned part in East Quogue and Hampton Bays and Flanders and Queog. I want to see this successful. This is not acceptable to me. I call up Mr. Elgott myself, or I'll call up the commissioner myself. I'll call whoever I have to call. Maybe we'll have a conversation. Very respectful. We are, I think, owed some answers for these folks. This just by saying it's the trustee's fault. No.
Come on.
I'm sorry. I've been told many times to my face that you guys, you're going to have a permit. I've heard this story. I mean, we've heard, I was told Mr. Warner will back us up before you guys even get your management plan done. You'll have your permit. Did they tell us that?
Yes, they did, Scott.
Right.
Can I make a little comment? 370 plus years we've been managing this cut. Before that, the Indians did it, very similar to what we've done. All of a sudden, they tell us we need a management plan. All right, so we work hard. We get every stakeholder on that watershed to come to meetings, working with every government agency there is created, and we sometime to adopt this management plan. At the meeting at the land trust, we were promised that that permit would be in hand before we adopted the management plan. That never came to fruition. We followed up with calls, we followed up with emails. We had multiple people working on this. And basically, I feel that we were basically led in the wrong direction. But we didn't stop. We continued to press on. And all of a sudden, it's 2 years prior to the second permit expiring, I said, we have to renew this permit. So we already started 2 years prior to the permit expiring. Now we're 4 years past it. And we've basically been working off an emergency authorization, which is a total failure. By the time you get the situation that's an emergency authorization, the pond is flooded, the farm fields are flooded, the salinity is low, things have gone bad. I sat almost 30 years ago with another board of trustees and actually went through this whole process to formulate an engineered inlet so that we could get a good head of water and push that sill that is been raised up because of beach restoration projects, which we worked with the town on. And that has caused a problem because all that material eventually ends up into the bay, builds up the sandbar, and we're at the point now where that inner bar is almost equal to where the sill that we're cutting out. So when we cut that sill, the pond will only drain 6 to 8 inches. We need to go in there, cut the original channel, which was a cone shape, to the deep part of the bay, which was dredged by the county in the 60s, so that we could connect the deep water and have a head of water. So when we open that inlet, it cuts that sill down and we get the transfer of water in and out. If we could get 25 days in and out, that pond would clean up and be very functional and environmentally sound and stable. But the problem is we do not get that flush now. We only get a slight drain. And unfortunately, if we get an extreme storm event, which will fill up the pond in 12 hours quicker than we can drain it out in 2 weeks. So we're at a point now where if the state doesn't give us this permit, the whole entire ecosystem is going to come crashing down. You're going to have loss of shellfish, finfish. You're going to have algae blooms. You're going to have poor water quality. People won't be able to swim in there. People won't be able to boat in there. There'll be no crabs for the locals. People are going to look at a dead pond. And if you want to see what a dead pond looks like, look at Mill Pond and look at Lake Agawam. They're green and toxic.
I'll tell you what.
Is this where we want to go? And it's not because we're lack of doing anything. We have pushed and pushed and pushed. I think it's about time that the DEC has given us this permit and allow us not 9 days of dredging in a 7-day window before the bird season. That was impossible to do.
I could tell you, I think it would be helpful in my opinion. And I want to talk to the supervisor, and I think I should talk to Councilman Martell. He's our liaison. I think that the town board needs to stand shoulder to shoulder with us.
Yes.
Because all of it, it's being affected are people that are paying substantial tax revenues. They're being inconvenienced. They're being put in an area where their public health and safety is being jeopardized. And I think the record needs to be set straight. I think we all need to get around the table. They have to say, listen, you need to provide us, trustees, town, you need to provide us with what we need so we can proactively manage this Mecox Bay, as opposed to this reactionary emergency authorization, which quite frankly creates the emergency. They create the emergency that they then take their time to issue an authorization to alleviate. It doesn't make any common sense. Okay? I'm sorry.
Right. Well,
it doesn't make sense. This is not how government is supposed to work. This is not how anything is supposed to work. And you know what? I want some answers. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to be making phone calls nicely, but I would like some answers of exactly what is the problem here. Okay? You've gotten everything that you've asked for. Everything.
Just one thought here, because, as far as town politics go, I'm way out of my depth and I can't offer you any useful thoughts on that. But if you guys were business clients, I would be suggesting that this is the moment for there to be a completely off the record one-on-one conversation between somebody from the town trustees and somebody from the DEC to see if somebody can find a deal that the other side can live with. Let's get through this and then get on with some more systematic
I
planning.
volunteer my time to make an attempt at that, if the board would grant that permission. But I don't have a problem with having a conversation with some folks, because I want to know what is the issue? What is the holdup? Why all the promises that have not come true? We're just representative of you. If you're letting me down, they're letting you down. It's the same thing. Okay.
And
Well,
one
to be
last
frank
question.
about it, I think the whole thing says something stinks, something smells. Somebody's got some political hooks in there or something.
Well, you know what? In all fairness, you've had a lot of changeover. You've got a lot of new people in spots. These are big decisions, and there's a looming threat of litigation hanging over people's head. And they're afraid. They're afraid for their jobs. They're afraid for whatever it is that they're afraid for. And that's fine. But we're elected officials that have to answer for the public and that have a mission. And at some point in time, when you accept a position, you have to take the responsibility and make those decisions. Okay? So that's why I say I want to get to the principle. Tell me who has the authority to make this decision. If you don't have the authority to make the decision, what am I talking to you? Let me talk to him now.
Right.
We need a decision made reasonably and fairly. I don't think we're asking for anything unreasonable to remedy public health and safety issues and protect and defend the environment that we took an oath to do. And quite frankly, you're issuing emergency authorizations on a regular basis to remedy these problems.
And they're wasting their time too. Why are they wasting all their time? I don't want to be sitting here all afternoon constantly going over the same thing. We've got aquaculture projects we want to do and everything. We're ready to do it.
You know what? I just would love to see us make the trains run on time here. Okay. If we could hit a trigger and open up the bay and, let it run, let us do this thing. Let us run what we all discussed and agreed upon that we needed when we adopted a management plan. Okay. A management plan only works when you can adopt it. Mr. Halsey wants to speak.
So let somebody get in the car and drive up to Stony Brook and let's make a deal.
I've been to Albany already, so.
Yeah.
I've been there, Stony Brook, with those folks. I'm going to call them.
But I think it's time again at this point. We're at a crossroads here.
Mr. Halsey,
I don't know. We talked to them last Friday. And they're immovable. And they told you Memorial Day. They told us not until at least Labor Day. So, we get the same situation every single time. The talk is cheap.
Get one of them without the team.
Yeah, but the team all talks to each other. One person can't just issue a permit. They're not like individuals. You have the lower echelon want to make everybody nice and happy and everything, and then it goes up a little higher and they say no. Something stinks about the whole thing. And another question is, where is Fred Thiel? He's our state representative who should have some sort of clout, being as long as he has lived out here and as long as he has been in the assembly, right? All you hear is crickets, nothing.
Listen,
Nothing.
when we get done with this here
Hey,
today, I'm
we're
gonna
gonna
be
make
making
some phone calls.
telephone calls. I'm gonna make some phone calls, okay? I'm gonna get to some folks. Mr. Halsey really wants to speak.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, he doesn't really want to speak, but I can't hold it back any longer.
Okay.
All I've heard, first of all, I tried to respect the 3-minute limit when I spoke. That's why I write it down and it doesn't sound so fluent.
Okay.
However, all I've heard so far from all of you, the 4 of you or 3 of you that have done most of the speaking, is history that you don't like, you hang on to, and you keep repeating over and over again. If you 3 start making phone calls, it's just going to prolong the history. It's time you looked for someone on the outside to start making some connections with others in the DEC who will then listen to a new voice. I understand your frustrations, but I don't agree with them. It's time to move ahead. We need forward-thinking people who are willing to put up with the bureaucracy. Now, that's the way I feel about it. And frankly, I'm about done. If the farm can't survive because of the mismanagement of Mecox Bay, then maybe it'll survive as a development. This is a simple system. You talk about the management plan and yet you stopped it when maybe it was getting ready to be passed. I don't understand any of this, and I got to be careful because I've been known to say things I regret later on. So.
Well, I somewhat disagree with that. I respectfully, I'm sorry, but sometimes when there's some continuity in the conversations in the meeting, and that's why I go back to Peconic Land Trust. The bottom line was when we all have an agreement, we come to an agreement that we're all going to engage in an action, and then you don't take the action. You don't follow through with what you looked me in the eyes and told me you were going to do. Now I need to hold you accountable respectfully for that. Okay. What is the answer to this? All right. I think it boils down to respect. Okay. We've had tremendous respect for every regulatory authority that we've dealt with. That needs to be returned. And we're representing you. Okay. They have disregarded what your wishes were to proactively manage this. They would have issued that permit. All right. We were well past it. Well past it. Okay. I don't think new people speaking. I think there needs to be perhaps some of the original crew that was there to get around the table and say, okay, look, we all made an agreement. We all came to terms that we were going to live with to the point where you said we would have a permit a couple of years ago. What has changed? What has changed? We adopted the management plan. They've had that for how long, folks?
Yeah, but one thing that should be made very clear in this whole conversation, no one's touched on it. Every time they ask us for some information for the application for the permit, we furnished it in a timely fashion. We've given them every drawings, title data, datum. We have Stony Brook College monitoring the water in there, the salinity, the temperatures. We've given them everything they've asked for as far as an application. So where is our permit? That's all I want to say.
Can I follow up on that? So last Tuesday, May 11th, there was a phone call between the DEC and approximately probably 8 people on the DEC, President Schultz and myself. And in the course of that conversation, one of the questions that was asked was, and to be clear, the DEC had asked previously, why was there an email sent asking them to stop work on the permit? That was explained to them. So to follow that up, the question was asked, if you were to continue to work, if the authorization were issued to continue the work on this permit, what would the timeline be that we were faced with? And there was a bit of vacillation, but the answer was within a couple months, by the end of bird season. The next question that was asked was, if we continue with the stop work order that's been placed on this permit, and we're basically starting over, what's the timeline then? And again, it was a bit of vacillation, but basically they said, we have no idea. We would have to probably go through the public hearing process. We would have to publish, the neighbors would have to do public comment. So remember that we're working within the bird season right now, within the protected species season, and we can only work regardless of whether we have a 10-year permit or whether we're working solely on emergency authorizations as we are right now. During the plover season, from April 1st until September 1st, we can solely work under emergency authorizations. So then the question was asked, if the stop work order were rescinded and DEC were given the authorization to move forward with the current permit, but at the same time, the trustees were to apply for a modification to that permit, correcting, changing the longer dredge so that it was wider and the flats would be able to drain properly, and there was proper tidal exchange that would be gained by that wider channel in the back. Were they willing to work with the trustees on that? And they said, and it's difficult on these phone calls to pull out the names of who spoke, but they were willing to do that. That is something that is critical to us. If we have to start all over, it could be years. Years.
Okay,
That's
but
all I have to say.
okay, but Ann, you just said if we apply for something that would make it a proper drainage. So that implies that a 10-foot wide channel is not proper.
Right. I am saying the 10-foot wide channel for the, I did not set the 10-foot wide channel for a 1,400-foot dredge, as you have said, is not workable. However, if we apply for the modification to correct that longer dredge and work with what's going on now, do the shorter dredges until we get approval for the longer one, that's a workable situation.
I know, and that's why I had InterScience draw up a plan and was sent to everyone that showed the original application that we sent in, and then I discussed with InterScience the possibility, because I saw that the DEC was worried about the 200-foot wide previously approved channel going out into the surf zone where we really don't need it. So to modify that plan to only be 10-foot in the last area, the 400-foot, 400 plus or minus feet in the sill area, to turn that into a 10-foot wide dredge and then go back to the 200. And that's what we were going to discuss today, to see if that was going to be the final modification to send to the DEC to apply to modify the permit.
But that's a critical point that you're addressing. So at this point, the DEC has stopped work on this. Stopped.
Okay, they
To
pretty
get
much
their
stopped
wheels, to
5
get,
years.
please let me finish,
Go
just
ahead.
hold on. To get their wheels moving again, the only way to do it in a timely manner is to request the continuance of the original permit. And then have them act in an advisory capacity while we're making the modifications to the longer dredge channel. They are willing to work with that. I took copious notes from that phone call the other day. And as I said, it's difficult to tell on those phone calls who's speaking, but they said they were happy, and I quote, happy to have us move forward and then find a reasonable way to modify.
But
Well,
with
that sounds like a sensible solution.
yeah, but with no
it-
time of no time frame.
I know.
And you know what? Another thing we were sandbagged too, which I didn't appreciate, is what their regional counsel sitting there. We're trying to talk to a couple of analysts, and he's weighing in on a whole bunch of different issues. I would have liked to have our counsel there. Who else was in on that thing? We were ganged up on by about 5 different people.
Oh, for gosh.
Oh, okay. 5 years to approve to do essentially an extension of another permit that they'd issued twice before. What's the problem with that? What's changed? We do extensions all the time. You have a dock permit, it's out there. Okay, you don't have time to do it, we extend it. You know, just give us the same consideration. I mean, there's something up here. 5 years of review, and then they want a permit, and then they want a plan that Scott goes into and everything, and then all of a sudden now it's not even going to be addressed. So how can you take them anything on face value? They'll tell you what you want to hear just to get off the phone. We've had, I mean, you know, we've been dealing with these people for 20 years. We got entered into a lawsuit in West Hampton Dunes. It's been going on for 14 years. They never backed us up. Never. Never. And you know why? It's because they were afraid of the attorney. And that's what they said in one of their reports.
I'm going to again interject. This board has to schedule for confidential legal executive session today. I would urge the board to discuss internally regarding legal strategy. And
I agree.
Yes, definitely.
I agree.
Yeah, that's the next meeting.
All I can say is now is that I was that I have been in contact with the supervisor to get the town board in an executive session to discuss with us what's going on townwide, so we can come up with a unified strategy of how to deal with the DEC and to back us up, because we would love to go down there and open that cut up, citing the 1906 law that enables us to do it. However, with our limited resources, we are not able to stick our neck out to just do it. A lot of people want to just go do it. Well, when the lawsuits come, who's going to pay the bill? And we need the town board to back us up that way. Okay?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Why don't you come down and see how it's eating?
Okay.
All right.
Wife just came in from being down on the Bay Shore.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness my father, me, and the next generation had smarts enough to build bulkheads to protect against this kind of management. If you continue, there'll be no more wetlands on the north side of the bay. Ann's nailed it. She's got it down. She understands what's going on. If you want to keep dragging on, we'll just have to wait till November. Thank you. I've got a more important meeting now. It's called.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. McGregor, are you still there?
I'm still here, but it seems like it's time for me to sign off because you, I think, have some
Well, yeah. I just wanted to add one thing, and I don't want to discuss too much but the email that you sent me the other day did not give me much confidence that we were going to get anywhere with higher echelons.
Well,
Correct?
you know,
Well,
it's worth a try.
all right.
I need to know why.
Okay.
I need to know why. We've given them everything. We've done everything they wanted.
Yep, and we're being blamed. We're being blamed for being the obstructionist when we're trying to get something done. You know, I think that, okay.
There's a grudge
Let's
there
vote the
that
meeting.
goes a long ways back, I'm afraid.
Is what?
There's a grudge there that goes a
No,
long
there's
way
no,
back.
there's absolutely no grudge going on. Look, you know what? I really think that, you know, trying to pin this on me being aggressive with the DEC, you know, I've been reappointed 22 times in my career by different town boards, okay, of different structures, different political aspects, and elected 12 times on the trustees. If I'm that hard to get along with, how did I manage to be 49 years in the town hall?
I wasn't referring to you. I was referring to somebody at DEC.
Okay. All right.
All right, I will sign off here.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor.
Hey, there's a Henry Goss who'd like to speak, if he
Oh,
could be
great.
brought into the meeting.
Great.
This must be some other name.
He has it under a telephone number, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's no telephone number.
Ending in 4318.
Not on this meeting.
Okay. He called me and said
There's
that
only one guest.
he told me he's watching the meeting and would like to speak. He called me on my direct line.
Okay. Did you send the link?
He says he's watching the meeting, but he can't get on, so that's why.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
There's only two people. One is me, and there's a Catherine Somo.
Yeah, she's
But those are the only two people in there.
okay.
Speak on Peacock?
He might have hung up. I don't know.
No, there's only been two for the last hour.
Did you send him a link, Lisa?
He said he was on the meeting, so I could.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Well, you know, we urge him to talk to either me or Scott or Ed or Ann or somebody like that to make contact with us. So, I mean, he was from what I believe, a vital part of this whole group that was in the discussions on the renewal of the permit anyway, right?
I'll try and call him and see if he'll call in, Charles.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay, and who was the other lady that wanted to speak there?
Catherine, maybe?
Yeah, I'll bring her in.
She's on for one of the applications under Lake Agawam. She's a representative for Lake Agawam.
All right, well, let's discuss that. Oh, okay.
For a resolution, it's on for.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. I mean, if you want her to come on now and speak about it, that's fine. Or you can wait till the.
Can you bring that up, what I asked you to bring up there? Do you have that? The previous permit?
Sure, I can bring that up if you like.
But he's still watching here. Just to give everybody a, you know, heads up on things. And just for clarification, the permit that was originally applied for by the full board, which Mr. Halsey was talking about, was a 200-foot wide channel, correct? The renewal of the permits that was issued already. Okay. This was the permit that was, I wish we had this earlier, but this was the permit that was granted by the DEC and expired in 2016. And that's basically what was applied for in 2015, wasn't it, Ed?
Yes.
Right. An exact mirror of this plan was submitted to the DEC, which they had previously approved. It's just a renewal. And they're being arbitrary and capricious as far as I'm concerned. And that mirrors a former plan that was essentially larger than that 10 years prior.
Yes, that was the one that I referenced originally with the cone on the north end of it.
Right. With a hydraulic dredge, by the way. So, okay. All right, so I guess public portion's over. You want to go into
Permits?
Permits, yes.
Pay the bills?
Yeah, and all that stuff. Okay, let me, okay. Okay, trustee resolution 2021-108, the application of 152 Dune Road Realty LLC, 152 Dune Road, Village of West Hampton. We moved this forward to the last meeting and make a motion that we approve it.
Hold on, Eric. We did receive a email from Donna Myers. She did not get the proper information in.
Okay.
On this, so she said that she's gonna hopefully have it by the next meeting. So she wants
it on this one.
Yeah, she wants it.
Okay. Okay. We'll put that on hold.
We need a motion to table to June 7th.
Motion to tape. Motion to table.
I'll second that.
Ed seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Scott's up.
I got trustee resolution 2021-109. It's application for Shinnecock Shores Associations for their grind wall that's east of Tarpon Road in East Quogue, tax map number 0900-395-1-001.000. I recommend that this be approved.
Second it.
Second,
Ed seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ed's next.
Scott, can you read mine? It didn't
He's
come on
got
my other phone.
2021-110, application of Robert Arcardi, 9 Canoe Place Road, Hampton Bays, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map 0900-229-2-10, body of water on the Shinnecock Canal. Maintenance dredge, south side of T-Dock, 600 square cubic yards. Maintenance dredge boat basin on south side, 400 square cubic yards, is spoiled to be placed next door at 7 and 5 Canoe Place Road, with the premises located at 9 Canoe Place Road.
Yeah, we went through this at work session, so I'm good with it. So,
Okay,
Bill?
so Bill seconded. All in favor?
aye.
aye.
Resolution 2021-112, renew application of Foul Surf LLC, permit number G.
Oh, that's
You got 111 too.
111.
11. Okay, let me go back.
Yeah.
Okay. Start all over again. Start.
Yeah, go to
Trustee
111.
resolution 2021-111.
Yep.
Renew application for Richard B. Niles, permit GP 000167 350 Fowler Street, Village of Southampton. Tax map 0900-30-1-65.4, body of water, Atlantic Ocean. Nothing has been changed on this. Like to renew it.
Second it.
Oh, it's not a new, sorry. I was thinking about the other one.
What?
I'll second it, Billy.
Second,
Okay.
Okay, Ed seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Next one's a renew.
Yeah, renewal.
2021-112, renew application for Fowler Surf LLC, permit GP 00173 330 Fowler Street, Southampton, New York, tax map 0900-178-1-20.2, body of water, Atlantic Ocean.
I'll second it.
Ed seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye. Trustee resolution 2021-113, application of Aquatic Solution East LLC, 340, 422, 452, and 496, and 520 First Neck Lane, Village of Southampton. Open water of southwest body of side of Agawam Lake. this application's for, taking formities down. We have done this before, so I'd like to have this one go forward.
Okay.
Phragmites or water lilies?
Water lilies, excuse me.
And is this about the same size as was done previously?
Yes, it is, Ann.
And the same technique, Billy?
Yeah, everything's actually the same.
She's-
2 harvests.
She's on if,
Oh,
Oh, yeah, right.
Any questions?
yeah, if
Hi.
you have questions or anything.
hello. Do you want to explain the project, Catherine? Just to
Sure.
reiterate.
So the plan for this permit is the same as we had done last year. We'll be using an aquatic harvester. It's basically, you can imagine like almost like an underwater lawnmower. There's a cutting blade that goes beneath the water and it will cut the stems of the plant without disturbing the sediment.
Mhm.
And then the water lilies are captured through a conveyor belt and they're let into a basket and then they're put onto the shoreline and until they finish harvesting everything. And then it actually shrinks down to not too much and then it's just disposed of. Aquatic Solutions does this disposal. They use it for mulch. And that's really, it's basically the same footprint. It may change a little bit based upon the aerators we put in, but the scope is the same.
Okay. I'm fine with it.
Thank you.
The drying area or the dewatering, drying out area is in the same location as last time too?
It's the same property, slightly different location, but it's the same property.
Great. Thank you.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks.
So I'd like to have this go forward.
I'll second it, Billy.
Ed, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2021-114. Application Christopher Product, 26 Landson Lane, Tuckahoe. Body tax map 0900-155-2-5. Body of water, Cold Spring Pond and man-made channel behind his house. This is that dock behind his house across the road.
Oh, right. We discussed it
That's
last
a
week.
piece of property, yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
The property splitting because that road goes through it. There's a couple of properties down there. I'm fine with it. I'd like to have this go forward.
I'll second it.
Second.
Ed, second it. All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2021-115, application of Louis Galasso, 128 Redwood Road, Village of Sag Harbor, Suffolk County Tax Map 903-1-1-11, body of water, Sag Harbor Cove. This we discussed last time. This was a permit that had previously been issued and that expired. So they are now reapplying for it. So I'd like to recommend its approval.
Did anything change on it, Ann?
Nope, nothing changed.
Okay.
I like to recommend its approval.
We have a second?
Second.
Scott seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, I've got trustee resolution 2021-116. It's warrant number 9 of 2021. I will read to you the check register amounts. We've got the law offices of Con and Con for $6,877.35. And we have Verizon Wireless, $573.28 for a grand total of $7,450.63. I recommend we pay these bills.
A second.
I didn't catch the second, so.
Bill, I think it was Bill first.
Okay, Bill. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next one is Resolution 2021-117. This is the authorize the expenditure for stocking of ponds and lakes with brook and rainbow trout. It's hard to read the small print here, but
I can read it if you want.
lowest bidder was Cold Spring Harbor Fish Hatchery. not to exceed $3,200.
It's the same proposal as last year and the same provider. And they
Gotcha.
did a good job last year, so we were all happy with them.
Yep.
Yeah, the guy does a wonderful job. It's wonderful for the community, right, Ed?
Yes, and I also asked him if he would give an educational forum on fish stocking and pond remediation as far as after fish kills. And he said he would do some research and get back to me on it. So when he does that, I will hopefully schedule him for a little educational forum for the Board of Trustees and the public.
Thanks, Ed, for working so hard on this.
Yep. Yeah. So I recommend it's, I second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution 2021-118. This is the authorized expenditure of tide side mooring system at Woolly Pond. So this is trustees authorized payment to Boat Owners World, and that the source of funding shall be from the trustees, not to let's see, what is it? Oh, not to exceed $2,214. This is Woolly Pond docking, right, Bill?
Yes, that's for, so when the boat's tied, the slips we rented out, so they can tie it on, so it's easier for them to adjust it for the 4 feet rate of high and low tide.
Right. Okay. So I'll make the motion.
Second.
Bill seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Next one's Bill for Agawam.
Resolution 2021-119. This is central purchase and contract compliance for authorized Lake Agawam rain garden cleanup. This is basically having a company coming in twice a year to clean up and trim and take care of that garden for us at the south end of Lake Agawam next to our parking lot. Wish for this to go forward.
I'll second that one, Billy.
Thanks,
Okay.
Ed.
Ed seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Ed's next.
Scott, can you, I don't have it on my phone, so I can't.
I'll
read
read
it.
it. I'll read it. It's,
I got you. Eddie, you got 2021-120, notice to commercial and recreational shellfish harvesters regarding North Sea Harbor Management Zone. Board of Trustees finds subject to projects of type 2 action pursuant to 6 NYCR Part 617, and no further environmental review is required under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Therefore, be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Freeholders of Commonalty of the Town of Southampton hereby authorizes the North Sea Harbor Management Zone to be open for the taking of hard clams by commercial and recreational shellfish harvesters during the following periods. All dates are inclusive: June 29th, 2021 through July 6th, 2021, August 31st, 2021 through September 7th, 2021, December 21st, 2021 through December 30th, 2021. Further resolved that the area will be open every Tuesday beginning June 1st, 2021 through September 27th, 2021, and be it further resolved that the harvesting limits are as follows: 2 bushels of little neck clams a day, all such clams to measure at least 1 inch in thickness. There will be no restrictions on the larger cherrystone and chowder clams, and the recreational allowable harvest is 100 clams per day. Being it further resolved that the Southampton Town Bay Constables have been directed to strictly enforce such limits. Davis Creek, which is a seasonably certified creek off North Sea Harbor, does not follow the same limitations and other commercial harvesting restrictions as the North Sea Harbor Management Zone. Davis Creek is seasonally certified for the harvesting of shellfish from December 1st to April 30th. So I guess I'll make that motion.
I'll second it, Scott.
Second.
Okay, Ed seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Scott.
You're welcome.
The next one, trustee resolution 2021-121, I'd like to put on hold or adjourn,
Make a motion to table that.
please.
I'll second it.
Second.
Ed seconded. All in favor?
Actually,
Aye.
withdraw that one.
You want to withdraw it, Sean?
Why have to withdraw? Can't we modify it?
It's a resolution of adoption. So I would recommend you on 121 withdraw, and we'll prepare a new one after your modified public hearing goes forward.
Okay. Like to withdraw.
Yeah, sponsor can withdraw.
Okay. Like to withdraw trustee resolution 2021 -121.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ed's going to second it again?
Yes, second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So I've got 2021-122. Notice of public hearing on amendment of Blue Book A340, considering amending the management and products of the waters of the town of Southampton, Article 8, Section 81, entitled Emergency Permits, Storm Damage, and Ice Damage. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Freeholds and Commonalty of the town of Southampton directs that a public hearing shall be held on Monday, June 7th, 2021 at 1 p.m. via video conference to hear any and all persons either for or against proposed amendment of Blue Book A340, Article 8, Section 81, entitled Emergency Permits, Storm Damage, Ice Damage.
Scott, you want me to speak to this one a little bit?
Yeah, I was going to say the Board of Trustees for the town of Southampton desires to clarify the existing rule section to reflect that written permission of the board is required for all repair work. But Sean, go right ahead and
Right. Right now, the way the code stands, minor repair work under 10% can be done without filing for a new permit. That will remain the rule if this is adopted. However, it would impose a requirement that the person send a letter to the Board of Trustees documenting conditions and requesting permission.
Right.
So that work would still be done without a permit, but it would require a letter of authorization to be issued by the board.
That's fine.
Okay.
oh, I would like to make that resolution to set up that set up the public hearing for June the 7th.
Second.
Wait 1 second. Only because it says in the notice of public hearing that it's via video conference. Does that language matter whether we're in person or not?
I don't think so, because there's a chance we may still be on Zoom.
Okay.
Right, Sean, I mean,
Correct.
It gives us options.
yes.
The issue is noticed effectively.
Okay.
Yep.
Just
We're
checking.
we're safe, Sean?
I think you're good. I mean, it allows them to come in or Zoom too. So.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So
We
we
need
got a
a
motion,
second.
we got a second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Trustee Resolution 2021-123. This is a public hearing. This is a notice of public hearing to consider amendment of the management and production of the waters of the town of Southampton, Article 7, Section 47, permit required application proceed and issued inspection to establish requirement of demolition permit and to amend public hearing time and frame and produce requirements. Basically, that this requires that if you decide to take a bulkhead down or demo a dock, or you need a permit from us to do so.
Is this
So-
any trustee structure, Billy, like a rock revetment or anything
Yes,
done on a trustee's
anything
permitted
done on
trustee
trustee.
structure?
Yes, you have a permit and you want to take it apart.
Yep.
Cal, do you want me to speak to the specifics?
Yes,
Sean.
Okay.
Yeah.
If the board follows along in your packet, in section 3, it would modify your definition section to read erect, construct, reconstruct, alter, enlarge, drive, place, remove, demolish, deconstruct any structure, including a dock, pile, and it goes on to list all the structures that you permit, effectively creating a burden to obtain a permit for any type of modification, including demolition. Further, in section F, we have worked to lay out what the requirements for a demolition permit would contain. So these are the procedural aspects that would be required for an application. If you have any specific questions about them, feel free to ask and we can elaborate here.
Well, I think it's trying to get around 65 Cliff Drive where we've had issues. We want to make sure that we do a proper review of our permitted structures.
Right.
Right. And then lastly, the public hearing section of this part of the code here. We were looking to essentially limit the number of adjournments that someone would be able to take. And we've done that first in section 2, where we'd add language after a second occurrence in which an applicant fails to provide the Board of Trustees with required proofs of notice, an applicant shall bear cost of publishing associated with matters that must be renoticed. So when someone does not effectively post their postings and mail their affidavits, any additional further postings would be on the cost of the applicant instead of the board eating the cost of advertising. Further, we have some timeline requirements that we've clarified in this draft section, that a public hearing shall be held no sooner than 15 days from the application completion letter, noticed by a notice of complete application. And on the back end, the Board of Trustees shall close a public hearing within 60 days of the hearing's opening, and within 180 days, an application is deemed complete. We've done that so you can mark things off the calendar. So people who are non-responsive, people who are not submitting what you ask them to submit, you can mark their hearing off your calendar. They lose their application fees.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay. Okay, great.
So if we're all fine with this, I can have a second, please.
Second.
Second.
Ed seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so anybody else have anything before we go into executive session?
Hey, Sean,
Yes.
how are you making out with the town board to adopt the blue book? Is it still on schedule?
Well, we're looking to schedule that after your adoptions take place on these public hearings.
And what date is
otherwise-
going to be?
I'm sorry, what's that?
What date is the, with the town to be on?
We don't have that scheduled yet because several things have just been modified, including the pier line amendment today. I believe Trustee Warner wanted to modify the shellfish limits as well. We were looking to kind of square things up and then get in front of the town board. With these
In June?
It's looking like if we have to include these amendments, we may be going for July at this point.
Can we do it twice? Because we keep on putting this off.
Right, these amendments keep coming. I would recommend.
That's why we decided, to do it at least twice a year, or even more if we have to.
Right, I'd recommend the board shoot for the second town board meeting in July. And then any further amendments would be adopted the following January. And we'd schedule this for January and June. All right.
Okay, as long as it doesn't cause any problems with enforcement.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks,
All
Sean.
right. All right, so in that case, then I make a motion that we close the meeting and go into executive session for legal advice, confidential legal advice.
Second.
Motion, Scott seconded, all in favor?
Aye.